Marco Estrada, former Jays All-Star and pitcher. What's up, brother? How are we doing?
Good. How are you? Thanks for having me.
Hey, no sweat. Hey, I was actually talking to a buddy right before you decided to come, or right after you decided to come on. I was like, it must be nice being the guy that people call with like, hey, a country needs somebody to talk to about, being clutch and having steel nerves in big games, right? Like that's a good legacy.
I appreciate that. I get more nervous doing these interviews than I do pitching, honestly.
Yeah, of course. Who doesn't? Like, of course. It is so wild, though, even looking at, like, every once in a while you get so used to a baseball game, and people talk about, like, the fear of public speaking. And, if I have to, hit, like, a golf shot in front of people quietly or a basketball shot in an open gym where people are all, like, quiet and looking at me, you just freeze up and you go, holy crap, people are all staring at me. And then when you just, again, as a baseball watcher, you just lose sight of it. But then when they do the zoom out of just a pitcher alone on a mound deciding the entire game, the hopes of, an entire country, it's like, the pressure in these things is immense. So you are the guy to talk to today, man. And I am just going to kind of start with it is what is clutch to you?
What is clutch to me? It's obviously someone that can perform on the big stage. Obviously, sometimes these lights can get a little bright during playoffs, and some people can handle it. Some people embrace it. I think people that embrace it, and go out and perform. And it's not like you have to have a complete game or something crazy like that, but you show that none of this is bothering you, and you embrace it, you take it all in, and you perform like you can.
Do you think that there was something about you in particular that made that easier?
Honestly, there was. I was excited for every single start of my career, but there was something completely different about a playoff, and the adrenaline that kicks in, I needed that. And I could never get that adrenaline during the season unless it was a game that, like, they all matter, obviously, but if it's to get into a playoff spot or something where it's a little more meaningful, I lived for those days. And that's what playoffs did for me. It gave me that much more adrenaline. I was fully alert. And I feel like it just made me focus more.
That's interesting because, usually when people talk about clutch, it's like, hey, how do you just make sure that a moment doesn't get to you at all, right? It's the ability to just make it seem routine, make it seem like it's the exact same thing. But for you, it seems like maybe that's something that wouldn't be, universal with other athletes, is that they actually use that added pressure, that added adrenaline, like it worked in your favor. Where I feel like for most people, if you're like, hey, what happened out there? It's like, I let the adrenaline, I let the moment get too big for me.
Yeah, and I think some guys just, they feel that adrenaline and they let it take over. They try a little too hard, where for me, I took it just as another game, but just, like I said, I was more alert, more adrenaline, but I was able to stay calm and cool, I guess. But I really embraced that, and if I could have, I would have loved to pitch every single playoff game because that energy, hearing the fans, and I don't know, I loved all of it.
Okay, this is an interesting one too because you did it on the home, or you did it here at the Rogers Center, and you also did it on the road. Again, you were 6 playoff outings with the Blue Jays. You had 5 quality starts, and everybody I think remembers each and every one of them here, especially if you're my age. You're a guy who went 8 1/3, 8, 6, 6 1/3, 7 1/3, or 7 2/3. It was just a lot of success. Was there a difference in terms of just the way that the crowd did impact you then? If you were a guy that was pitching on that adrenaline, like the Jays are on the road today, they're playing in a hostile environment, Minnesota, where, they're dying for success. They're 1-18 in playoff games since 2004. Do you think that for most pitchers, that road atmosphere actually might be more useful in the sense of letting that adrenaline get to you?
Yeah, because it's going to be loud regardless.
Mm-hmm.
So you just got to take that in with the right way, I guess. But regardless, I think today, especially in Minnesota, I think there will be just as many Blue Jay fans out there, to be honest. It's just every time we would go to Minnesota, Blue Jay fans would travel very well. And I can't imagine there not being that many there today. It could even be a 50-50 type thing.
God,
But,
I hope that it's close.
I hope so too, and I think it will be. I mean, like I said, every time we go to Minnesota, a lot of Blue Jays fans would show up. It's not like Seattle. Like, that's nuts. That's a whole nother story. But still, they drew really well there. But yeah, regardless whether you're home or away, especially during the playoffs, you're going to have fans on your side. But you also, you use all the screaming and all that from the opposing team fans. You take it in, and I don't know. It would give me maybe a little more adrenaline also, but it would make me want to pitch better just to shut everybody up. And I love that when, especially when we would go to Texas, everybody's screaming, yelling at us. And my job was to make sure that stadium got a little more quiet. And you knew it by the fourth, fifth inning, it would be silence other than our fans screaming and yelling.
Yeah. See,
that was always my favorite thing, is being on the road and silencing the crowd.
See, that's my favorite thing. It's like today, it's excruciating for Blue Jays fans, right? Like, there's nothing more stressful as a fan than playoff baseball. It's just like every pitch, you're just sitting there like, why do I? The amount of times that I've had either a baseball fan say to me or that I've said to someone else watching a game, either there on the couch or in a bar, whatever, is just like, why do we do this? Why do we do this? It's like for what you just said, for when it was like, shut up, Texas. That feels good. That's what it's for, is that moment of relief and that exhilaration of beating the teams that you hate the most in those meaningful moments. And so, yeah, I wonder, okay, this is a little bit of a weirder one, but I just wonder how a team like Minnesota, like I said, with that record since 2004, right? 1-18 in playoffs since 2004. And you guys on the 2015 team, you'd had this long playoff drought that the Blue Jays had had. I don't know how much it ever gets discussed amongst players, but when things start to go poorly, like that's why the bat flip meant so much to so many people here, is not only was it a great moment, but it was a feeling like, holy crap, we're not cursed. Like, our baseball team is not cursed. There's something that was just kind of unleashed throughout this entire city that night. Do you feel like that weighs on a team like Minnesota? Like, do you feel like if things start to go poorly for them, that does start to build up in the players' heads like, oh, of course this is happening, we're the Twins?
No, when we were there in 15, 16, I never looked back and said, man, this team's been on a drought. Like, they haven't been in the playoffs since. I just never took any of that in. It's a new year, whole new team. I mean, none of that stuff matters before. I never thought about it. I don't know if other players do, and I don't think they do. But especially in 15, looking at our team, trust me, that was the last thing on our mind. We knew we had the team to go far, and obviously got cut a little short. But we never thought about any of that stuff in the past.
Again, we're talking to Marco Estrada, who in 41 2/3 innings pitched in the postseason for the Blue Jays, spots a 2.16 ERA with a .74 WHIP. Pretty good. Okay, so I was kind of hoping you were going to say, yeah, the Twins are going to be feeling it. They're going to hate it. They're going to know that this is happening to them. Because I'm hoping that they don't really have a big advantage at home. So going back to 2016. You guys are back in the playoffs, right? You're coming off an all-star season. How different was the team from 2015 to 2016, just in terms of the way that you remember approaching the playoffs? And obviously, like, you're going into a wild card game, so it's a do-or-die situation. But I just mean, like, did you feel as though guys were more confident, or maybe there was a little less pressure, given that you had been to the playoffs the season before, and now this was a group that was returning for the second time, kind of like this Blue Jays team?
Yeah, 100%, because there's a lot of guys on that 15 team that had never seen the playoffs.
Yeah.
So no one really knew what to expect, the crowds, how loud it gets. And a lot of guys, younger guys, would ask me what it was like, because I had been to the playoffs before, and I would tell them it is different. It's completely different, but it's a lot of fun. You guys should just embrace the crowd and the brighter lights and everything. But going into 16, all these guys had experience, and it was good experience. I mean, we went far, just didn't complete it, but everybody got their feet wet and knew what to expect. So I do believe the confidence was a little bit higher in 16. So it helps. It helps to have some experience under your feet and just knowing what to expect. But, in 16, we had that experience. Didn't have the team like 15. 15, I thought, was the team to do it all. And it sucks waking up and not seeing a ring on my finger. Because I've talked about this before, how I had a dream before that game 5 against Kansas City, waking up with a ring on my finger, and I was so excited. And once that game was done, I was like, oh my God, that was it. That was the sign. We just won today. We're going to go into their place. We're going to win and take over. And man, it still hurts.
Yeah, it's double. It's like you don't have the ring and you were proven that you weren't psychic. It was like a tough double blow, You're like, man, I could have really used those psychic powers for good. I really could have.
Unfortunately not.
Yeah, I could have had even more monetary gain. Okay, so Kikuchi's moving to the pen, and he's a big ritual guy as a starter. Like, very known for, the way he prepares going into a game. How tough do you think a shift is going to be for a guy like that, where they're asking you to potentially come in? I don't know if they'll put him in a situation where there's base runners on, but just one where he doesn't get that same routine and he's not sure when he's actually going to be pitching.
I'm sure if he were to come in, it'd be clean inning, fresh inning, nobody on. I mean, you have to. It's especially if he's never done it before. You can't just throw a guy in the 8th inning, bases loaded, 2 out. Like, that's not a situation for him. Let him get his feet wet first, give him an inning or 2, and then if he's comfortable and he shows that he's comfortable, then you can maybe start using him in a little bit higher leverage situations, because obviously you're going to need him. He's a big arm and a great pitcher. Mm-hmm. But it's not easy. It's not easy. I was lucky enough to have done both early on in my career. I started in the pen, got thrown in as a starter to fill in for someone, then back to the pen. So I knew what to expect. So in 15, I was asked if, after I had pitched, after I had started, I was asked if I could still give him an inning or 2 in the pen the next day or the day after. And I always said, yeah. So a lot of the times I was in the bullpen just waiting for my spot, but I knew what to expect. And I also had a big routine that I'd like to go over, but you can't, you got to change it. The pen's completely different. You have to have a killer mentality. Where as a starter, you kind of you don't want to cruise, but you kind of do. Like, it's completely different. You don't want to go in and give everything you have the first inning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got to tell you, that scared me a little bit, just in terms of, I think about you being ready, and I'm like, yep, that makes sense. Some of the other guys that might get put in that situation on this team right now, I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so Gausman has really struggled against the Twins in his career. He's got a 6.35 ERA and 11 starts against the Twins. And 570 in 6 outings at Target Field. Like, this is a guy who is an ace. This is someone who has clearly established himself as one of the better pitchers in Major League Baseball. But did you have a team like that? Like a team where you just felt like, damn, I can't figure these guys out. Every time I pitch against them, they just find a way. And how does that?
100%. Yeah. Everybody has a team.
Who's your team? And how did that fight with you psychologically?
Yeah, when I was with Milwaukee, St. Louis was that team for me. No matter how well I pitched that day, just something would happen and it wouldn't go right. And it was early on in my career, so I knew in the back of my head that this was a team that just gets to me every time. And I would think about it a little bit. And as I, had a couple of years in the major leagues, then all of that stuff, you learn you have to let it go. It's a new day, new team, So I'd let it go. And, I went back and pitched against them with Toronto and, never thought about it. Did well. But then same thing with Toronto, my first 2 years with Toronto, Tampa was, I loved pitching against them. And then I don't know what they picked up on me. I could not get anybody out after that. But I wouldn't think about it. I had more service time and just knew the mental aspect of baseball, how you have to be mentally strong and you have to literally forget about those bad outings. by the next day. So, I wouldn't really think about that stuff anymore.
So
and Gosman's pitching today, he's incredible. I don't think any of that stuff matters. He's too good to. He's been around the league enough. I know he's not thinking about it. I think he's gonna have a great game today. I can't wait to watch him pitch.
Man, I hope so. Because their playoff hopes are really riding on him having a really great game today, not taxing that bullpen too much, and just letting Toronto put their best foot forward and putting the pressure on Minnesota to win 2 straight games. But he's got a 43% whiff rate on his splitter this season, but against the Twins, and it's only 2 starts, but that whiff rate was 25%. And you're a guy who I think could very much relate to Gausman in that you guys both have you both had one of the best pitches in baseball, right? You with the changeup. And I wonder what it's like for you, how difficult it is when you feel like the other team, your opponent is on your pitch, where they've figured something out about your pitch.
Yeah, there wasn't a lot of times I would feel that way, but obviously it did happen. And like I said, with Tampa, it just felt like they knew when I would be throwing it.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if my changeup was on that day, it just didn't matter. But most of the times when, or some of the times where it just wasn't quite on, it did feel like they were all over every single one. And I don't know if I was tipping or what, but it's frustrating. And, sometimes your best pitch isn't always going to work, but you have to stay with it because it is your best pitch and it's what got you to where you are. And then obviously you mix in other pitches that, like for me, it was my curveball or cutter. No one really expected me to throw any of those because it was basically fastball changeup. But that's what I would do. I would mix in a curveball or cutter once in a while just to get the guys off those other pitches. And then you got to stick with your guns.
You never had the curiosity to ask guys, once the seasons were over, once the career was over, hey.
I asked, and I was told there was something,
Yeah.
but they would never tell me what it was.
Yeah. Oh, so they would that's even worse.
That's even worse. Yeah. To this day, I don't know what it was, and I was told, because I would ask while I was playing. So. Oh,
okay. Yeah, that's.
No,
You got to go back. You got to ask somebody and be like, "Hey."
You have to go back. You're right.
Yeah, I would never sleep.
It does bother me. So I just want to know what it is, and I think I know what it was. I think, it was this thing I had with obviously your grip is completely different, but I think my wrist with a fastball would be up higher, and with a changeup it'd be lower. Yeah, man, it's crazy what guys pick up.
I was just going to say.
Crazy.
That's so unfair. It's I think my wrist was a few centimeters higher, and it's my fault. Oh my God, that's psychotic. Man. That's, you know what though? That's the thing with Gausman that worries me a little bit about today is, if they're just not, if they're not swinging over top of that splitter today, if they're just sitting there, they're taking their walks, they're forcing them to work deep in accounts, how that starts to build up in your mind. Like you said, you got to stick with your pitch, right? And we've seen him do this before here in Toronto, where it's the other team's picked something up. It's happened a couple of times against a couple of teams, and he has to keep going with it because that's just who he is. But then when they're sitting fastball on Gausman, even though it's 95, the other teams are probably going to catch up on it. They're going to draw a few more walks like they have against him. I just feel like the frustration of that is what is probably harder to forget than anything, the frustration of wondering what the hell it is has to just gnaw at you.
Yeah. And it could just be, when you face that team, you just miss your spots, because I think that's the most important thing. Even if guys do know what's coming, you hit your spots and you're going to be okay. I saw a report where, when the Astros had that whole ordeal going on.
When they cheated? Yeah.
I didn't want to say anything.
Yeah, but their ordeal. Just a little ordeal that they were having.
But I saw a report. I don't know if the Jays did or someone did it, where they heard the whistle or trash can or whatever it was 20-something times off of me, which were all changeups, and they had 0 hits off of it. So they knew it was coming, but no hits were had, which is crazy, right? So now it's like, all right, well, I just located my pitch. Because hitting is obviously really hard to do. And I think if you just locate your pitch, whether they know what's coming or not, the pitchers usually are a little more successful than the other.
Yeah, that's another great stat. Like, hey, the Astros cheating, couldn't even hit it. Ouch. That's a good one. Like, that's a really good one. I would, yeah, that's a good one to like pull out at a party. You know, like 2 drinks in, you're like, the Astros never hit my changeup, even though they were banging on trash cans. Take a sip of the cocktail, walk away, go to the next group, tell that same story.
Yeah, that year.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was 16, 17, but or 17. It had to have been 17. Yeah, I don't know how it was brought to my attention. I guess a friend saw it, and he's like, dude, look at this. They didn't even get a hit off of it, and they knew it was coming.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's actually pretty cool.
That is very cool. That's a great stat to have. And yeah, we found out that stuff because people went through and combed through the entire seasons on the internet, and bless those people. But I will never understand those people. Like, I'll never be able to comprehend the type of person that finds out that the Astros were cheating and is like, all right, time to go through the tape. 162. Like, start it. Man. I think that was a bang. All right, write it down. Notch it. Next pitch. Like, whoever did it, bless you. Bless you, bless you, bless you. We needed you so that we would get this stat. Yeah. If you could find out that stat or like who accumulated that for you, it's like, yeah, that was worth a present, Like, that's worth a present from you to them just to own that personal statistic, because that is a damn good one. Okay, so last one. Do you like this new wildcard format?
You know what? I haven't even thought about it. So they added 2 teams, right?
Yeah, and just like now it's a series. Because you guys in 2016, it's like, hey, this is for all the marbles. And I don't know. I went to the game in 2016, and I don't know where I'm at with it, to be honest. Like, I kind of like that it feels more like playoffs, that it's a series. It feels less like a novelty, I guess. Like, your team, it's a little less random. You are going to win. But if we're talking about it from the pure, just winning you're in, awesome baseball game and being guaranteed that, I don't know. Like 2016, we're like obviously bat flip night, but then number 2 is, just the exhilaration and the pressure of being at that game, and how I went from feeling like I wanted to puke and I hated my life to it was the most happy I think I've ever been. it's like there's
obviously a lot more pressure on one game. It's one game, go big or go home. But you throw your best, right? You throw your best starter, your best lineup, your best everything that day, and you give it your all. And it's incredible. I do like that. But what I don't like about the new format is the teams that have a bye week. I mean, it's an entire week. And I think that's unfair. I mean, that's a long time to go away without seeing live pitching or, because you can't mimic. As much as you want to hit batting practice and go out and practice throw bullpens, you cannot mimic a game. It's impossible. The adrenaline isn't there. None of that stuff's there. So I think they have a bit of a disadvantage. And I don't know if a lot of people are talking about that, but that's the only thing I don't like. I think it's cool that more teams are in it. More fans can watch more baseball, but yeah, the teams with the bye week, that's got to be tough.
You know what it is, man, is that we now live in the era of like load management, and athletes pitching less or playing less is mostly viewed as just like an overwhelming positive thing, right? Like the rest versus rust era, that used to be like a debate. And now it's just like, especially here in Toronto, we had Kawhi. Like, we're the number one, we're the capital of don't play anybody. Like, nobody play any sports until it's this meaningful moment. Then we'll, max it out. But yeah, I think that's a lot of it, is that we're all sports scientists now on the outside. And so whenever we see you guys are resting, we're like, nice, this is great. This is what we want to see, not you playing. That's really where it's at.
Yeah, I don't understand it. It's not the era I grew up in, and it's completely different. I don't understand it. I probably never will. But I just don't understand people listening to a computer and telling you what should be done and what shouldn't. Like, the guy should tell you. Like me, I was always the guy that wanted to be on schedule. I didn't want the extra day. I hated when they would move the rotation around. I hated it. Like, listen, it's my day to pitch. I'm ready. I want that day, and that's it. I've prepared this entire week for the 4 days before for this, and now you want to take that tomorrow away from me to move me, 2 days later.
Mm-hmm.
And like, it just changes everything for me. And I didn't like it, but they would tell me, well, it says that this will be beneficial and blah, blah. It was obviously at the end of my career. And it happened actually with Oakland. I begged them not to move me, and they decided to move me, and it just made things worse. And I only got to pitch 5 games there, so.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a guy that just likes to be on schedule and know when I'm pitching, and I want to keep playing. I don't want time off, but I guess it's different now.
Yeah. It just must be so tough for a manager too. Like I think about, guys in clubhouses who have to try to balance those two things, where they've got the khakis who are telling them one thing, and then they know that they've got to approach you later and how it's going to affect you as a human being, and that they're with you every single day. Like, they don't see you as numbers. They see you as like a person. That's right?
Really tough. I can imagine having to do that, because you're right. You are in the clubhouse with all the players, and the players are going to tell you one thing, but what would you call them, the khakis?
Yeah.
They're going to tell you a completely different thing. So, and man, that's you're in the middle,
Yeah. It's just like,
they're balanced somehow, but that's hard.
The worst too is that you have to admit a lot, like sometimes when they're right, you have to be like, damn it. Like that computer nailed it. They nailed it on this computer. They put me into an algorithm, and now it's only like getting better and better, right? And then, but for the most part.
Well, yes, but like, all right, so also the whole shifting thing, I hated it. Yeah. I wanted guys playing normal position, because if someone hit it up the middle, it's probably a rocket. Mm-hmm. It should be a hit. I don't care. Mm-hmm. It was the 20 hoppers that, went right to second base and nobody's there. That drove me nuts.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I would always ask infielders, can you guys just play normal? If something's hit up the middle, I don't care. Let it be a hit. It's fine. The guy did what he was supposed to. I'd rather that than see someone hit a weak ground ball to short and nobody's there because you're playing up the middle now.
Did guys listen to you when you asked for that?
No one would ever listen to me.
Oh, they know.
No, they
were just like, no, we're soldiers.
The manager's telling us this, or the infield coach is telling us we have to. So, sorry, but
I would have just thought with the Jays team, since you guys were like a little bit more mature and secure, like, you have a Tulowitzki behind you, and you're like, dude, like, help me out. He's like, yeah, I'm not really worried about them benching me. I'll probably.
Yeah, he was one of the few guys you could tell, and exactly what you said. Like, no one's going to tell him anything, so he was moved, and he would get to so many balls. He's so good at short, and it was fun watching him play there. But it was tough. But again, I wasn't really a ground ball pitcher anyway, so it doesn't matter.
That's true. Hey man, this was fun catching up. It always is. Like I said. No, number 2 most clutch, strong athlete in my lifetime behind Kawhi. It's not a bad thing to be behind Kawhi. Like, he was good. I don't know if you watched basketball, but he was pretty damn good here.
Oh, yeah. He was very good, yeah. No, I would watch those games when they have their runs and stuff. Yeah. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I still watch, I've been watching the Blue Jays ever since I retired. I still consider myself one of them. I actually got to see them when they went to L.A. and went inside the clubhouse, talked to a few of the guys, and I still talk to Pete Walker.
Mm-hmm.
I literally just messaged him an hour or two ago, so I still know people there, and it's always great seeing them. So I consider myself a Blue Jay probably for life, and I'll probably always watch the games.
Buddy, what are you talking about? Obviously, like, you think you're an A? Like.
Oh, no.
Like, what are you talking about? Like, of course you're a Blue Jays. We claim you. That's not up for debate. You're not a Brewer. You're a Blue Jay. Like, you go to any All-Star games with the Brewers? Like, no, man, you're a Blue Jay. Like, all your biggest moments, you're Blue Jays. Like, that's not up for debate. Like, how dare you even almost say it?
No, I just meant I
just
follow
kidding.
them pretty strong.
Yeah. You like their chances in the series?
I love it. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, that's good to know. See, that made me feel better. This whole day has been making me feel worse. I get worse and worse the closer we get to first pitch. That made me feel better hearing it from you. Hey, man, thanks for the time today. It's always a pleasure.
I really appreciate it. Pleasure. Thank you so much for having me. Good talking to you guys.
Of course, buddy. Marco Estrada. There he goes.